Welcome to the Prevail Over Cancer Podcast, where we take a metabolic approach to help guide you on preventing, prevailing, and striving over cancer.
We are live. We are live on the Prevail Over Cancer podcast. I am one of the hosts, Jeff Lopes, my incredible co-host, Keith Bishop. And today's a little special. We are actually, for the first time, we've been talking about this for a while, but the first time we're actually bringing on an individual that cancer has affected her life in different ways. And it's going to be an incredible story. And I cannot wait to hear her story and just share stories, because I think it's very important to hear other sides and other individuals are going through this situation, hear other people's stories and how they've overcome and what their journeys are. So Jen Delvaux, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so honored to be your first guest. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought. Jeff and I have been talking about it for almost a month. I thought, okay, who can we have? And I just thought of you. So you have a great social presence, and you're teaching people and sharing what you're learning. And so, matter of fact, actually, we kind of try to figure out the name of the podcast of what this title could be. And so one of my thoughts is this could be, actually, we could call it Beauty and the Beasts. And so
Yes.
now Jeff and I are not the beauty. Okay. So,
Well, I appreciate that.
So yes, I'm so excited to have you. It's great.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I think let's just get right to the story, because your story is affected by two aspects: your husband first,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to talk to Keith about that later on in the podcast, because I hear a lot more lately where a husband and then later on his spouse will be diagnosed later on, or family members. And is that environmental? Is that like, where are the connections there? So we'll talk about that later on in the podcast, but let's first start off. Let's get right into the story, Jen. Let's just start off how it all started and how did cancer enter your home and how did it affect you and where did it all begin?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So my cancer journey started in 2009. My husband I think he was 36 or 37, and he just started feeling a little bit different. He was, he supported our family. I took care of the kids in the home, and I was in real estate at the time, but the real estate market was not that fun. So I basically was home with the kids, and he said, I'm feeling like I'm having some issues sending emails, and just simple words weren't coming to him. And so he scheduled an appointment with the doctor, and the doctor actually set him up with a psychologist, and they did some testing on him, and they realized he scored really high, except for the short-term memory. He failed miserably. And he said, let's just set up an MRI. It's going to be fine, but let's just do an MRI just in case. So the MRI happened to be on my birthday at 9:00 at night. They do MRIs around the clock. And so we went to dinner with my family, and then we were meeting with friends afterwards. So we were doing this silly little stop at his MRI, and it was at the hospital. And I remember the tech who took him to get his MRI. He said, I'll be back with him in 45 minutes. And then 45 minutes passed. And then it was like an hour, and I'm like, what's going on? And so I kind of started just walking that hallway. And then I looked and I saw the tech coming without Darren. And I was like, what's going on? And he's like, hey, come with me. He's in the changing room right now. I'm like, okay. Thought that was a little bit weird. And so my bells were kind of going off, like something's not right. And I get back in the room, and all of a sudden Darren walks in with an IV in his arm. And he's like, we're going to the ER. They found something. I'm like, what? And like my life changed forever in that moment. Literally, I still can remember the walk down that hallway to the ER. I remember being so cold and just feeling like I was going to get physically sick, because I just knew something bad was going to happen. And in fact, they were like treating us like kings and queens and getting us water and blankets. And I'm like, this is not good. This is not good. And then 3 doctors came in, and they said, we found a mass on your brain. So that's how the journey started, where cancer entered our lives. And we were it changed our lives forever. I think, at that point, our kids were young and we were busy and just go, go, go. And immediately it halted everything. And the silly little things that would annoy us as a couple, everything stopped. And we just learned to appreciate and all the moments. Like every moment became so special to us and we cherished every second because I thought I was going to lose him. So since then, he's had 3 brain surgeries, 2 rounds of radiation and chemo. His first surgery was in 2009. And then again, 2011, it came back pretty quickly. So we ended up going to MD Anderson in Houston for his second and third brain surgery. He did radiation and chemo then. We actually moved to Houston for a little bit because he had a stroke and a lot of complications after that second surgery, where he had to basically learn how to do everything again. And then the third surgery was in 2019 and it went to a grade 4. So we did another round of radiation and chemo just to extend his life. And here he is 5 years later, or almost 6. He's a miracle. So now he deals with the side effects of, just doing 2 rounds of radiation to the brain. And so it was over 50% of his brain radiated. And so he's like this walking miracle, but they don't have any answers for him as to what he can do now, because typically people don't survive. He's just like a miracle. And then I was diagnosed in 2021 with breast cancer. It was just a routine mammogram. It rocked my world. Again, I just thought, how could this happen to me? I'm the strong one. I'm the caretaker. I take care of the home. And I do think it's interesting, that question that you asked in the beginning that we'll talk to Keith about is with a spouse and getting a diagnosis afterwards. But I do think that was a piece of it, because I had to be strong and I didn't allow myself to work through the emotions. I was like just the strong one and took care of everyone. So then when I was diagnosed, when you hear the words and this, it's like you think your life is over and you think you have weeks to live. And I was a wreck. So I had to work through a lot. And I'm almost 4 years out, doing really well. It's been an evolution. It changed my life. But yeah, so that's kind of my cancer story. It's a long one.
That is amazing. Just, going through all of that. Most people or families, it's only one person,
Right.
in the family. But for both people, that is just, it's shocking and tough. And so, you've gone through a lot, and thank you for sharing, that story, and also what you do, on social media and your community and things like that, showing what you're doing, which is having an impact. Your husband's doing great. Matter of fact, he's a pharmacist, and I think, right? And so he's retired now, and due to disabilities, but I'm just so impressed with everything that you do. So what are your thoughts about the stress aspect, and that, I've not found much research supporting that. I mean, but you're a unique case too. Usually it's not one cancer, major struggles, and then yourself. And so that's just not a common kind of thing. But what are some of your thoughts about that?
Yeah. And I've heard things and I've done some research on it, but I definitely think stress can be a big factor with people getting dis-ease within the body. I think we're all under a lot of stress. We live in this really fast-paced world where we have all the bells and whistles and our phones going off, and we never bring ourselves down into that parasympathetic state, like calming that nervous system. And I think a lot of us live in this fight or flight response, and that's not good for our bodies, because when we are in that constant chronic stress and fight or flight, our bodies are working, our immune system is working on that to calm that instead of on the actual disease or whatever's going on with your body. And so we need to every day focus on different ways that can work through that calming down the body. Because I remember, even as I was being that strong person and would not cry, I would not let my emotions out. Darren's going to be fine. We're good. I think that what happens is that energy becomes stuck and it can further cause dis-ease within the body. And I think I just didn't work through the emotions of it. And I do think that that was one of the factors. And I think also that caretaking piece, and women in general have, we're the caretakers. We do it all. Not to put you guys down at all, but we do. And I think we have a lot on our plates, and we don't want to act like we're weak or that we need help because we are supposed to do it all. And that's a lot on our plates. And so, I've learned since my diagnosis, immediately I had to tap into that. Immediately.
There's two, let me jump in there, Jen. There's two parts of that.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you a question and also give a little insight of my side here. The first question, and you can answer this after, was you dealt with everything with your husband. Did that prepare you for what your journey was? What I mean by that, and I don't know how your expertise right now. Do you deal with a more metabolic approach to cancer, or do you focus more on treatment? Like, where's your mindset with that?
So we actually approached our diagnoses very different. Okay. So Darren, like I said, he's a pharmacist, and I knew immediately that we should make changes for him, but he was not on board.
Okay.
He was like, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I don't need to change anything. He is just happy-go-lucky. He doesn't have any worry in the entire world. He trusted, I'm getting the surgeries. I trust the doctor. I'm getting the chemo and the radiation, and I'm good. I don't need to change my diet. I don't need to change anything. And he didn't have fear. It's weird. He really, maybe there was we had moments of where a lot of emotions were involved, but he really didn't have the fear that I did. And I knew that I needed to be part of this healing. I needed to take steps in my own hand and work through in conjunction with what my doctor said.
Okay. And why I'm asking that is because, when I got diagnosed, Keith knows my story. When I got diagnosed November 22nd, 2022, literally within 24 hours, I was like, okay, suck it up. Let's deal with this. And I was on 17 supplements, sauning, keto diet. Like, I went to the extreme 24 hours later. And that prepared me for surgery and obviously made a huge transformation on my body, and it made surgery a lot easier. And I didn't do the chemo route because I'm not a proponent for that. And I dealt with it metabolically. What I was asking you, and there's another part of the question, but what I was asking you was, when your husband went through all the chemos and all the radiations and you saw the side effects, did that alter your mindset of how to approach the cancer? That's what I meant.
Oh, I see. No, it really didn't, because I feel like it was two different beasts. With brain cancer, it's so different. It's a different chemo.
Yeah.
I just think that I didn't want to do chemo. I was scared of it for sure. I think maybe seeing him go through it. And plus, I am the type of person that I don't take Advil if I have a headache.
Me neither.
Like, I know that my body, you know what I mean? So I'm that, and he's like, I take the Advil. Like, we're just so unique in that.
Yeah.
So for me, the thought of chemo scared me to death. And I didn't end up doing chemo. Yeah. It was on the table because it's a higher grade. But can I just say, did you say your diagnosis was 11/22/22?
November 22, yeah.
I was 2/22/21. Wasn't that funny?
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
I'm a numbers girl. I don't know why, but I just heard that and I was like, wait, that's so close to mine.
Yeah. And then the next part of the question was, the question, because you did have that emotional distress and everything with your husband, and I've been studying a lot more, and we've talked to Keith about this, how an impactful time in your life, and you see a lot more people with a connection to cancer. When I'm talking about a stressful divorce, a death of a loved one, and you see that 16 to 18 months later, or a few years later, a connection. And I went through that. Keith's aware. Just under 2 years prior, my dad, which was my best friend, I was the 43-year-old that would talk to my dad 3 times a day, and wouldn't go to bed without having a conversation with him. And he passed away suddenly. I didn't have a chance to say bye. It was just an instant heart attack. And that put a lot of stress on me. I spent the first 90-something days at the cemetery every single day. But I was also, as you're saying, the strong one for the family, for my mom, for my sister. I dealt with the funerals. I dealt with everything. I'm the one that dealt with banks, insurances. I took on every burden and was a strong one, but emotionally I was dying inside. And is there a connection of that towards what happened to me? And I love that we were talking about that, because I think that's something that a lot more people have to be aware of, that in a situation when we go through such a stressful time in our lives, is it the direct connection of how it affects our body? Or is there other impacts of, obviously, your stress, you're going to eat worse, you're not going to work out. There's other aspects of your life changing that can figure into that all. But I do think that something that you went through had some kind of connection to where you are now. And I do believe my father's passing had a connection to where I ended up as well, right? So let's talk about a little bit more of that. And if you want to chime in on that, Keith.
Yeah, so definitely, I think stress does play a role in that. So the physical things going on in the body to deal with that stress, though, to take care of, like Jeff, you doing everything, and Jen, you doing everything to take care of the family. But even for myself, and so I've done tests on myself, blood glucose. So fasting, I wake up and my blood glucose is 80. And then I do intermittent fasting, so I don't eat until noon. And then after I've had a couple of cancer appointments with clients, and I'm giving everything I can, I'm trying to help them and provide everything I can, my blood glucose is 150. Okay. And so that stressful time of even me just helping a couple of people, 2 or 3 hours of appointments, and now my blood glucose is way too high. And so that is just one physiological sign that's going on. And so I learned that I have to even take things to help with that, with the adrenal response of dealing with the stress. I do take, if I know I'm going to have a stressful morning, I'm going to take ashwagandha, to help bring my cortisol levels down and my blood glucose. And I can measure that. So that's going to be one physical thing going on. Actually, my mother, a similar type thing. So my mother dealt and helped and took care of my father, who had early onset Alzheimer's. And then it was, and I don't know the exact dates, I'm not a numbers guy in that area, but it's like 2 or 3 years later, glioblastoma, after he died. And so she did not survive that. And, but once again, a stressful event, 8 years of taking care of him, 24/7. She didn't put him in an institution. She took care of him at home. My brother, she hired my brother to help out with that. That was wise. But I wondered, that took a toll on her, physically and emotionally. So, so I think there is something to that, but we just have to learn to try to take care of ourselves. And I think that's part of it. Even with my mother, I'd go, and when my brother wasn't available and my mother, we needed a respite time for her, to take some time off. We'd either take her on a trip with us, or I'd go up there and spend a few days, and so she could go with some friends to go on a trip to give her a break. But Jen, so what types of things did you start doing to help deal with the stress? What do you find effective for yourself to deal with the stress of these cancer challenges?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me, I remember those first couple days of being in my body, I had this out of control fear. Like I didn't even feel comfortable being in my body. And I remember this was, it was right after COVID, shortly after all that began. And so I was going to have to go to an appointment by myself. And I thought, I don't know if I can drive myself. This is before Darren lost his driver's license. He can't drive anymore due to his brain cancer. But I thought, I think I'm going to have him drive and just sit in the parking lot. And then I was like, I can't do this. And I grabbed my phone and I searched apps and I found a meditation app.
Yeah.
And it was called Unplug. And it's been with me ever since.
Yeah.
There's different meditation apps out there and there's free ones on YouTube. But there was one meditation called Your Superpower Calm. And that one meditation, I finally felt peace. So meditation, I think, is the biggest. And this helped me so much through treatment. I didn't go a day without meditating. And I typically meditate at least 5 times a week. If life gets busy, I might miss a couple of days here or there. But meditation was, I think, the most important thing. as you're navigating a diagnosis is to have ways that you can bring your body into that parasympathetic state and that calming down that nervous system, and meditation, breath work. I even tell people, because they think, oh, I don't have time to sit down in meditation. Okay, sit there for a minute and just focus on your breath. Do box breathing. It's that simple, just to bring your body down into that parasympathetic state, and do it multiple times throughout the day. So I think that was the first thing that really helped with that.
Great. Exactly. I love that. The breathing techniques, I call it therapeutic breathing, and box is one of those. And there's several different types of breathing techniques. And once again, even apps that can help work you through that and coach you through that, talk you through those, type things. So that's a great tool.
Yeah. I love that. That was a huge part. When I got diagnosed up to surgery, I mean, I needed my time every day just to kind of settle down, and I would just shut off the lights. My son's now 16, my daughter's 18 now, but that time was a year and a half ago, and a little over a year and a half ago, and everybody knew that in the house. My wife like, okay, this is his time. Half an hour, I would shut off all the lights, put on my earbuds, and just sit down, cross my legs, and just listen to I think it was 432 hertz or whatever it is, just sound vibration, and just chill out and just breathe and just zone out and just let your thoughts go. And I think that was a huge part of me calming myself throughout the whole day, because I was so focused on, okay, here's my diet, here's my sauna. I haven't, honestly, Jen, I haven't missed a sauna day. I haven't missed a workout. I have not put a drop of processed food. I haven't put a drop of sugar. I haven't taken an Advil, Tylenol, not even a Tums in over 2 years. Like nothing changes. And maybe because I've been self-employed for 29 years. I've always been an entrepreneur. And so I have focus, but I mean, every time, even if I see someone eating something sweet and it's like, that won't hurt me one time, but my mind, I don't know why, I always think where if it does come back, I don't want to always think back to that one day, which is really crazy when you think about it. But that's how my mind focuses. I don't want to think back to that one day I had that donut. Shouldn't have had that donut. So I have this focus. Let's talk about yourself and things that you are currently doing, whether sauning, journaling, your diet, your supplements. Like, what's your journey now? Like, what's a day-to-day for you in your life?
Yeah. So I definitely, well, first of all, I love that you said that about the hertz, the fourth, like I listened to that too. I think something that is one of the beautiful thing that comes from a diagnosis, and it may take a little bit to get there, but you do see the world through a whole new set of eyes.
Yeah.
Everything looks clear and beautiful, and you notice the trees, you notice the snow. Like before my diagnosis, I would have been annoyed by the snow. Now I look at the beauty of it. And so just recognizing things around you, I think it teaches you to slow down. So the changes I made though, is I first, like I said, I felt that out of control fear, and you feel out of control. You feel like your body has betrayed you. And so you're like, what can I do? And the first thing I thought of was food, nutrition.
Yeah.
And even the first few days, I was scared to put anything in my body. And then I started incorporating whole food, plant-based. I don't do fake meats. I'm not, there's very unhealthy vegans out there.
Yeah.
I do wild caught fish and, some things every once in a while, but I eliminated ultra processed foods. I eliminated sugar. I eliminated a lot of things because that's what I had control over. And just that made me feel good first. And then I definitely got the sauna. I was actually going to a place, and now I have a sauna at home. Yeah, I started doing smart supplements, meaning I started testing.
Okay.
I think sometimes we tend to I was trying everything in the beginning, and I was like, my husband's like, how much money can we afford with all the supplements that you're buying? I'm like, you're right. So then when I got testing and I know how my body works, I got blood work, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm deficient in. This is what I need.
Yeah.
So then I'm on the right supplementation now. I started swapping out toxic products. Yeah. I did that right away. I know some people get overwhelmed with this. I'm like kind of like you, Jeff, where it was like immediate. Like I need to change everything that I have control over. Yeah. So that was the environment that I live in, where I am most of the time. So, I started swapping out all of our cleaning products, all of the skincare I was using, and the makeup. And then actually before even that, I did the water. I think the water we drink is really important. So we had a company come and install reverse osmosis with the minerals added back in.
Yeah.
And then the air we breathe, I think, is really important too. So just opening those windows a little bit more, even during the cold days, like just getting in that fresh air.
Yeah.
And then I also have a HEPA filtered air purifier, like in my room and in the areas where I am the most. But then there has to be a place where, becoming more spiritual. I don't want to forget that one.
Yeah.
I definitely had to have a clear understanding of life and not being afraid and not being having that fear of like, what if? I mean, none of us are getting out of this alive. That's the one guarantee in life.
Yeah.
And so when you have acceptance of that, and before that, I would never accept that. Like the thought of death scared me to death. And now it doesn't anymore because I have a better understanding. So getting really spiritual was very helpful. And then, but the other thing is, and Jeff, you're probably not there yet, but not being in that cancer bubble.
Yeah.
So much, depending on the person. For me, I needed to experience joy a little bit more. I started fearing food. I started fearing doing these fun things with people, thinking like, oh my gosh, is this going to get me off track? Oh my gosh, am I going to get the right amount of hours of sleep? And I was missing out on some fun things. And so now I have a sense of balance, but that took some time.
Okay. I love that.
How do you feel about that?
No, I'm like that too. So I'm very regimented on what I do, but I've also, I haven't stopped traveling with my family. We just went to Portugal. We went to Cuba. We went to New York. I've always wanted a certain car, and just recently I said, screw it, I bought it. I'm the type where I've always wanted to race a car, and I'm now getting my driver's racing license next summer to race. At 47, I'm going to be racing a car, which is crazy because my wife says cancer didn't kill you. Now you're going to race a car. But it's I've actually turned around where it's like, I want to live. I've always talked about this because I've coached people too in the past, where live without regrets, do what you have to do. The biggest thing is people on their deathbed, the regrets. And I've always had that mindset, live without regrets, do what you want to do. So now I'm taking that to the next level. I love that one thing you said, and it's one thing from day one, because it does get overwhelming when you are diagnosed, because it's just your world turns upside down, is I kept telling myself, I would tell myself this probably hundreds of times a day, control the controllables. Today, I'm going to control this meeting of the doctor. Today, I'm going to control what I'm putting in my body. I would just focus day by day, control the controllables. Anything out of I don't know what the results are. Don't think about it. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Don't think about it. So control the controllables. I think that's so important when somebody first gets diagnosed, because it is overwhelming. So if you could just focus on what is in front of you and what you could physically control, I think it makes your world so much easier at that point. So I love that you kept saying that, because that's something from day one. I would repeat that to myself. Control the controllables. Sometimes my head would start wandering. Like, I got this the next week. I got control the controllables. Mm-hmm. And you just keep repeating that self. And I think that was a huge aspect of it. And I'm going to ask Keith something in a sec too, but so you're on this great journey now. You're how old are your children? You mind me asking?
They are 20. She just turned 25.
Okay, you're ahead of me. Okay, you're just ahead of me. Awesome. So they're young adults too. So my daughter's in university now, so they're young adults too. How did that impact them? And I want to ask you that because how it impacted my kids. But how did it impact them, especially first time and the second time?
Yeah, it's funny. Okay, so they're very different. And they handled it very differently. So, and Darren and I have always been open with the kids about everything. I mean, we didn't give them stats. We didn't tell them that initially he was given 18 months to live, but we told them right away. And I think Drew was 4. And so Maddie was 9, and they handled it very differently, where Drew wanted to be very involved and Maddie was so scared of it. She didn't want to ask a lot of questions, but I could see in her eyes, she was always seeing how I was feeling to know how she should be acting.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because some people, I talk to a lot of people about, handling it with their kids. And she's like, and I'll hear from some people, they'll say, my daughter was like, okay, good. Now can I go to my friend's house? They all respond differently.
Yeah.
Like, you never know. You can't judge the kids. they're probably scared and just they don't know how to handle it and they don't know how to talk about it. So just give each child grace on how they respond.
Yeah.
So they were really nervous, I think, with Darren's first diagnosis. And then when I was diagnosed, Drew was he 16, 15? And Maddie was a little bit older. So they were like, you got this, Mom. You're going to kick ass. Like they never told me they were worried if they were. They were like, you've got this. So it's funny. They were not worried when I was diagnosed. And I was so scared to tell them because I thought they would freak out because I'm the strong one, but they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting seeing that. See, my daughter is a replica of myself, like entrepreneur, very strong-headed, very self-sufficient. And she would always plan to going away for university. That was day one. Always, always, always just pure natural entrepreneur. Always wanted to go away for university. And all of a sudden it was time for university. And she just came to me and my wife and sat down with us and it's like, you know what? I don't know why, but I'd rather stay home. I'd rather stay at a university close to home. And I do know the reason, but that was her mindset where it was like, I want to stay home closer to dad. So it was interesting seeing her aspect. And my son's a very, emotional child. What I mean emotional in a way where he's very affectionate. My son's 16 and he won't go to bed every night without giving me a hug and a kiss still. And I love that.
I love it.
Every morning he gives me a hug and a kiss, tells me he loves me. Every time he says, hey dad, good night, love you. And I love that aspect of them. And he went through a lot of physical aspects when he was born. He spent the first 4 months of his life at the hospital. He went through a lot of physical surgeries and stuff. So we have a very close bond in that direction because I was always with him. I was the one at every appointment. I've never missed an appointment for him. I'm always the one taking care of him. So it was, he was very emotional with it. He was very emotional. He took it hard and he wouldn't say it, but I could just see how his reaction was, where it was like, his emotions inside where when I first diagnosed, my wife was waiting outside. I walked in the car. I still remember this so clearly. Walked in the car, told her the situation. We sat there just quiet for about 10, 15 minutes. She was waiting outside the hospital when I did my colonoscopy. And we drove home and we just sat there and I said, let's wait till the kids get home. Both my children got home from school. We said, let's sit down in the dining room. And we told them, I was right up and I told them, I didn't want to hide anything from them. We told them, we had an open conversation as a family. And I think that was the best case scenario. But at the same time, when I was diagnosed, from the day I was diagnosed to the day I did surgery, literally maybe 10 people in my life knew I was going through this. No one else knew. I kept it quiet because I didn't want to be overwhelmed with people asking questions and all that stuff like that. When your husband was diagnosed, did you guys keep it into a closer bubble or did you guys keep it announced to people what was happening?
We told everyone.
Okay.
We told everyone. We knew we had a ton of support too. We needed the support and we're a very open family and I don't hide. I share everything on social media to help people navigate whatever it is. And so no, we told everybody. And I will tell you too, it did make our family so much closer. We are very, our son, we have such a close relationship with both of them, but specifically our son, he is, but it's interesting. He's really smart and they're both in therapy too. I will say this, they've always been on and off therapy. And my son went to this a great school. He was wanting to get into computer science. He's just very techy and knows all the things. And he went to college and he realized this was not his thing. This is not what he wanted to do. And now he's going into psychology and he's learning a lot about what we all went through. So it's interesting to talk through. And I think this is, what he needed because he did struggle. And I think he actually, when you were talking about your life and how you are the strong one, I think he tends to be that way a little bit too.
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you want to jump in there, Keith?
So, for a little different switch here. So both of you are young, a significant cancer challenge. Jen, how did that affect your work?
Oh,
we talked about family, but how did it affect your work? And then Jeff, how did that affect your work? And both initial and then today.
Yeah, changed drastically. So I've always been in the fitness world, or I started back in 2009. And the second I was diagnosed, I was like, I didn't want to do it anymore. I love fitness, but I knew fitness had to be done differently. And I was in a network marketing company it was Beachbody, which is now going away anyway. But that's what I did for years. I built a big team. I supported our family. I know when Darren was first diagnosed, he was the supporter for our family. And I was like, when I saw that they did a psychological exam on him after his first surgery, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to do something. So, and thank God I did, because I started then. And by the time he had the second surgery, 18 months later, I had already started this business and had some success with it. And so I kind of took that role over. But when I was diagnosed, I was like I stopped eating all the protein bars and the protein shakes that were loaded with garbage and who knows what was in them. And I didn't feel comfortable promoting something. And I never do. I never promote something that I don't believe in. So I was like, what am I going to do? But I was still that company was still financially supporting me. And I found this other one that's all on, simple swaps. We're getting rid of the toxic products in your home and swapping them out with these simple swaps. So pivoted. And then I opened up a cancer community. I knew in my heart of hearts that I am on this earth to help other women and be a shining light for them and show them what's possible. Because when I was diagnosed, actually friends sent this to me and she said something like, wow, God must really think highly of you to put you in this platform to be able to now shine the light on what's possible. And I was like, oh, that's huge. And so that's my gift. I mean, I feel like why I'm here is to help people navigate this and show them that they can get through this.
Okay. And so Jeff, how about you? So how did that impact your work?
This is supposed to be a Jen podcast.
Yes, I know, but real quick. So therefore,
it didn't really affect me. I've been self-employed for 29 years. It's funny you said that, Jen. I started off in the fitness world. I ran a personal training consulting company from 19 to 24. I've had a gym. I sold it, branded it, sold. So I've always had that aspect. So fitness was a huge part of my life even before I diagnosed. So being diagnosed with zero family history, not even a cousin in my family history with cancer, zero genes, healthy person, never smoked, never drank. So that was the biggest shocker to me. You're like, why me? But work wise, I got a great staff. Both my corporations kept running smoothly with the staff I have. And I was able to take a step back and really focus on my health because I had great staff in place. And I kept telling myself when I got diagnosed and I made a promise to my wife, which I broke, that I was going to kind of slow down because I do work a lot and self-employed, and I'm always trying to start new ventures and all this stuff. And that lasted for about a year and a half. I just started a new corporation, another company a couple of days ago. So once you're an entrepreneur, it's just your drive, right? You have to keep moving. You got to keep doing stuff. So did it change? No, because I had luckily already had in place the proper scenario that I could walk away and go on vacation for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and nothing changes in my life. So luckily in that scenario, I was able to focus. And it was crazy. It was when you're diagnosed, the first thing oncology says to you, like, what's going on with work? Are you able to take time off work? That's the first thing they ask. And I was like, yeah, I could, but why do I have to? So that was the first thing. So yeah, I had everything in place. So nothing really changed in that aspect.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so Jen, now you've kind of evolved into this toxin thing. So share with us about that.
Yeah, it goes back to that control piece. And I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, but I truly believe that, 90% of the cancers that are diagnosed are due to environmental factors.
Yeah.
And 5 to 10% are, hereditary. I think, that number fluctuates a little bit, but I truly believe that, even though it's a tricky one to put out there in social media because people actually take offense to that. And it's never to blame or shame. It's to empower.
Yeah.
And I think that gives us if I thought that I just had to trust the doctors and I didn't need to do, and there was nothing else that I could do, that would be really hard for me. But to know that I have some control of looking at the air that I'm breathing and the water that I'm drinking and the food that I'm putting into my body and the movement that I'm doing and the skincare that I'm using and just the pans that I'm using. Like, I love to share how simple it can be as somebody runs out of the laundry detergent. Okay, switch to this one. As you run out of pan actually don't get rid of your nonstick pans. I always tell people.
Yes.
You can get really inexpensive ones at Home Goods or wherever. Just get stainless steel, and so it's helping people and showing them what's possible. And I think it gives, when people make these changes, it gives them some hope.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I'm always hoping to do. And it's empowering to them to say, oh, okay, I can do something about this. And then the cancer community piece, we talk about that into that in there as well. So
what kinds of simple things can people do in their homes? You mentioned a couple like the pans and you do some filtering. So what other little things do you do?
Well, it's candles, anything with fragrance, get rid of it. I used to love candles, but they're so toxic. I did find one brand that's actually better. So there are a couple brands out there. But just anything that can get the quality in your home good. And I even had somebody come in to test our air quality and to test our filter system. And it's crazy. People don't realize what's in your home, but I think the number one thing is the air you're breathing. Get a HEPA filter and open up your window a little bit, a few times a day. And you don't have to get a super expensive air quality machine. There are cheaper ones as long as they have a HEPA filter on Amazon. And then water, I said that. I think the food you're eating, focus on more organic, especially when it's a dirty dozen. Wash your fruit, even though you don't want to. Always. And then looking at I think a really important thing is reading labels. I think people go to Whole Foods and they think I'm at a health food store or a health, and they think everything has to be healthy. And I'm sorry, the whole food, especially what they make in their little deli section, I would never touch that. So just simple swaps. And as you run out of things, replace your deodorant with a better one. Replace your skincare, replace your lotions, whatever. People don't realize too, the skin on our body, it's our largest organ. Yeah. And then the last piece to that is I want to just share a study. I think so many times people think, oh, well, I've been doing this forever. I'm fine. What's the point? How can I get rid of this? There is a new study that shows they actually took breast tissue, and for 28 days, and I can share the study with you guys to put it in the show notes, but they took breast tissue and for 28 days, they removed parabens and phthalates, which is, the fragrance and the skin and all the things. And it actually turned the breast cancer gene off. 28 days. It's so our bodies are so smart. They're so powerful. And when we remove the toxins that are everywhere, we don't have total control over everything, but when we can control our environment, that can help improve your health.
And there's the mental aspect of that too, just knowing that I've got control and I'm making a change. We don't have to be perfect, but we can make these little changes. Evaluate the cosmetics. So how do you evaluate cosmetics? How do you know? Us guys, we're not into that. So how do you know what are good brands of cosmetics?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Did you say something? You guys went silent.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So how do you evaluate cosmetics?
Oh, well, there are great apps. I mean, Think Dirty is one. Gosh, I can't think of the other one that I have, but just again, looking at, because just staying away from Sephora, number one. But I have a list too that I've kind of evaluated. But yeah, it's a lot. It can be overwhelming. And that's why I just say start small, start little, look at those apps. There's a lot too that actually you can even take a picture of it and it can tell you what to stay away from. Anything with fragrance. If it says paraben and phthalate free, you're probably safe.
Okay.
Let me just jump in there, Keith. I mean, everything you said there is crazy because I do all that stuff and I did that from day one. I mean, my house is full of snake plants. I got a snake plant in my kids' rooms and my things. We have them in every floor at the cottage, at my office. I have a shelf here with I can see right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 snake plants in my office. So
they're everywhere in my home.
So people, there these little changes, like every morning we open up the door, we let the dog out. There's a reason to leave the door open, slide door for 15 minutes. I get home from work, the office. Open the slide over 15 minutes, change your filter, and we live in a colder environment. Our HVAC systems change the filter every 2-3 months. It costs you $20. buy them at Costco, change your filter every 2-3 minutes. Little changes make huge difference. I think it's so crazy now that I've educated myself so much on better eliminating things like you're doing. Like I think I do everything I possibly could at this point, but it's so crazy when you talk to other people, how most people are so uneducated with it. They're so blind to it. And when you do try to explain to them, it's like, it's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to me till it happens to you. And I'm getting people to understand that these little changes, I mean, reality, you can get somebody, we both know this. We all know that person that smokes and drinks till they're 90. My uncle's in 93, 92, and 2 shots of whiskey and a cigar pretty much every day. And he's healthier than a dog in his 90s. So there are the outliers, but I think we all understand that these changes could affect, and it's not only affect us, affect our children, affect their longevity. So we're looking at everything as longevity now. So making these changes, and it doesn't have, like you said, it doesn't have to happen every minute. You don't have to do every single thing, but open the door. There's so many little things that you could do on a daily basis that'll go so far into our health and changing our lifestyle. So I love that you're educating people on that, because I try to spread as much knowledge as I can, because it's people are so uneducated with that. And I think, and I appreciate Keith and yourself for individuals that are trying to spread the word on it, but it has to be, we have to keep teaching and educating people, because they're very low cost efficient stuff like washing your fruits and vegetables, even organic. I still wash the crap and everything, because most organic farms are next to a normal farm, and that wind is blowing all that crap pesticides over. So I still wash the crap out of our vegetables and fruits, even though we try to buy as much as we can organic or at the market. So you still have to be cautious. Don't focus on reading on the label. And I think that was the biggest misconception of us. We're roughly the same age. So when you're looking at in the 80s and early 90s and everything, I went through that. I was into health foods and into the fitness industry, and I was into working out, and everything I bought was fat-free this, fat-free this, fat-free this. And now you go back and you're like, oh my God, everything was with margarine. You're cooking with margarine. You're essentially cooking with plastic. You go back now and think of, and I was having this conversation, think of everything I did to my body in my late teens, early 20s, thinking I was being healthy, was poisoning myself.
What about the spray butter?
Oh,
remember the spray?
Yeah.
Totally. I remember thinking,
and you would try to wash the pan, and it would take forever to wash that pan up after.
I know. I would do a fat-free hot dog with a fat-free bun and fat-free cheese. What in the world did that do to my body?
Yeah.
Oh yes. Even I had a pharmacy that was inside a grocery store for 15 years. And right next door to me was the bakery, and so I did a lot of bad things. I have to, the apple fritters every day, soda pop every day, all the fast food restaurants out in the parking lot for lunch every day, and then, fat free was the thing. And so we had the Otis Spunkmeyer, muffins that were literally this big, zero fat, but they were 500 calories, of carbohydrates. And so we just have to learn. And things are evolving. We're learning more about these toxin issues. And for example, now they are able to test beverages and water bottles and things that have gone through plastics. And we're learning they can actually measure those plastics now. And so it's a learning process. 5 years ago, we didn't really know that much. The past couple of years, things are changing. So that is just kind of like, okay, here's another change that we can make.
Yeah, plastics for sure. I got rid of all plastics too.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, plastics, seed oils. There's so many things we could talk about.
Cutting boards. We could go. Yeah. We could talk for hours.
Yeah.
But I think the thing to remember for those that are listening is that it's one thing at a time.
Yeah.
And once you get to a place like we all have, it's easy. You don't even have to think about it because everything's already done. I know it's overwhelming if you're starting at square one, but once you start swapping these things out, then you are all set up for success.
It's a domino effect. One little domino at a time, and it starts building over time, right? So you have to just take that little, you have to make the first step, right? That's all it is, right? Making the first step. And it's crazy we're talking about the grocery store, because I saw a post the other day, and I think I slapped it on my storyline on Instagram, where a gentleman was talking, and he says, isn't it ironic that a grocery store has a health food section now? Shouldn't the whole grocery store be healthy? And when I could let that, I was like, that is the best thing I've heard in a long time, right?
It is so true. that through the aisles of like a huge aisle, there's one little section of where you can get it.
And that's the higher end grocery stores. If you go to a basic grocery store, you ain't seeing that at all. I mean, us in Toronto and Canada, it's like the Fortinos, the higher stores that you're paying a premium. They'll have this little 3 or 4 little aisles with health, and they're not even healthy because some of these are just they're all ultra processed stuff that are supposed to be healthy, right?
Right. Exactly.
So we have to read those labels.
Yeah.
And, if there's more than 3 ingredients, we should be very careful about that. So, so Jen, what are a couple of tips you have for somebody that's just been diagnosed with cancer?
Well, I think we've talked about so many, but I think the first thing is just first of all, I always say this too, and I learned this kind of the hard way, but don't react out of fear.
Yeah.
We always have some time, and to kind of allow yourself to sit with it for a little bit and then do some research. And I think the most important thing is researching your doctors and your team.
Yes.
And like Jeff was saying too, it's like one thing at a time, one moment at a time, because there's so many decisions to be made, and there's things can change. And so just being in the moment and trusting. So going slow, I think bringing into ways that you can bring your body into that parasympathetic state, and having belief. I think our minds are super powerful. And I think sometimes even as you're taking supplements or even medications, if you don't believe that something's going to work, it may not. I think our minds are super powerful. I've talked with women who have gone through chemo and it was nightmarish because they thought I'm putting poison into my body. And then I had another woman she went and sat in her chair getting the chemo drip and looked at that. It looked, gold. And she's like, this is my liquid gold and it's going to heal me. And I even look at my husband, who he fully believed in the treatment. He's a miracle. He's done nothing else, but that's what he's believed. So I think our mindsets are super powerful too.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can connect that automatically to mindset to stress, right? If you have self-belief, you're eliminating stress in yourself, which once again causes stress and it causes other issues in your body. Sorry, so you're about to say something, Keith? I apologize.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, Jen, when you do have, and obviously with your community and stuff like that, and I love that you said that with surrounding yourself with the right doctors, because I'm a strong believer in and I did that from day one. I literally went on a mission of trying to get every book, and there wasn't many podcasts, trying to find any podcast, trying to find any book, trying to find any connection or network I had to learn as much as I could. And some was good, some was bad, but still inform myself as much as I could. So when I sat in front of oncology for the first time, and he was going to give me these options, I already knew every option he was going to give me. And I think educating yourself is the most important thing, and surrounding yourself around individuals that have the same mindset or the same vision that you have to have a better understanding, right? And don't be scared to reach out to people, because there's so many people that are very open like yourself with their stories on social media that you could just shoot a DM to and just say, hey, this is my, I literally get probably 5-10 DMs a week of individuals that are going through a scenario. And I just talk, some people I just grab on the phone and we talk, and I talk to a couple of people every week, just give them some advice or pass them to Keith or give them some other understanding of what to look for, how to prepare themselves. So there's individuals out there that are more than willing just to hear your story, to help you out. So like yourself, Jen or Keith, right? If somebody is just got diagnosed at this moment and it's obviously the scariest time of their life, what are the first couple of things that now that you've been through that you would say, okay, this is what we need to focus on? Because to me, I created a list, and Keith knows I created a list and say, okay, I need an oncologist, I need this. I created my list. Is there a certain list that you have for people at the beginning to say, this is what you need to prepare yourself with?
Oh, with doctors?
Just in general, doctors, or just like in general? I haven't
done that, other than I always say research. Yeah. Research your doctors. Your team is so important. You are in charge. You're in the driver's seat. If you can fire your doctor. I think that's the most important thing. And I learned that a lot through Darren, because the first doctor was not so good. Yeah. But then we did our research and we found a really good team for him. And then, so I knew that for me, which was really interesting for me, is they were like, okay, here's your team. And I was like, okay. And then I remember just sitting on my couch feeling just so defeated. I was like, wait, why am I not researching this? Like, I would have done this for Darren. What am I doing right now? And so anyway, I think that is the most important thing. And then my piece of it, and typically what I share are all the get your mindset right.
Yeah.
Process your emotions, allow yourself to feel, get angry, you can cry, be sad, whatever you're feeling, work through those emotions. And so those are the pieces that I talk about more so than the, what to do as far as doctors. But I actually do recommend travel when you need it. It's a temporary thing. And I know that seems overwhelming. We flew to Houston and got his treatment. I truly think that's why Darren's here.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you said just allow your emotions to come out and don't suppress them, because that was one thing I around my family, I put a strong face on, but when I would be driving to the office, there was times I'd break down by myself, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to do that. And I talked about that actually I think I put a clip on that when I left. I did radiation, a 5-day, pretty intense radiation. When I left the radiation, the first day, when I got to my car, I just broke down because it was the reality that this is really happening now. So it's okay to be emotional. It's okay. I'm a guy. I'm a tough workout fitness guy that does martial arts, and I have no issues with crying, and I have no issues of letting it out and letting those emotions out. So I think that's very important for people to understand as well, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's just okay. I think it's necessary.
Yeah, I agree.
I really do. I think it's part of the healing. And if you don't, I even tell people, like, if they're like, I'm strong, I can't watch a sad movie. Just go cry. Get something. You got to get those emotions to work through you.
Yeah. Anything you want to leave off here, Keith? And then we'll get all Jen's information where people can reach out.
That's what is Jen's information. So Jen, what is your social media?
Yep.
Names and your website
and podcast, everything like that.
Yeah, your podcast. How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah. So my Instagram, that's where I am most of the time. Jen Delvaux, just my name, JenDelvaux. And I am like Jeff, and I'm sure Keith, I talk to people, like I work it. I do not have anybody that manage my Instagram. I manage it, and I have conversations daily with people who are going through it. And I love having those conversations. My website is jendelvaux.com. And then our podcast show is Not Today Cancer.
Love that. Love that name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not today, cancer.
Not today. And so on that podcast, what can they find that on? Maybe your website, or is there a particular podcast?
Yep, it's on my website, and it's on all platforms. So yeah, I have guests on. It's my husband and I talk freely, but I have other guests on as well, and experts, and Keith has been on a couple times because he's one of the show's favorites for sure.
Oh, great. Thank you.
That's awesome.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. I appreciate you being, Jen, our first, our guest, as telling your incredible story, your journey. And like always, Keith, I love having conversation with you. I look forward to it every week, and just having a great conversation and allowing our listeners to learn, to educate themselves, and to now hear other inspiring stories to keep them motivated as well. So that's it for this week, guys. Thank you so much.
It's been great. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.